In this tutorial, we're going to learn how to synchronize animations with recorded audio narration. So if you notice on this slide, I have 3 bullet points. And what we want to do is have 3 bullet points come in based on the audio track. So let's go ahead and replay the slide and you can hear it.
Effective managers delegate wisely, they set clear goals, and they recognize achievements.
All right, so let's go ahead and build out this slide. So we'll close the preview. Now we're looking at our slide. And before we get started, let's take a quick view at what we have on the slide. So you'll notice I have an audio track, and then I've got my bullet points here. And then I have the bullet points set up to come on at different points on the audio track. You'll also notice I have these cue points. So I can set a cue point based on my timeline, and then I can have an object aligned to the cue point. And that's how we actually have the bullet points come in at a certain time. So let's go ahead and build a slide, and then we'll build out the synchronization in the audio track. So first thing we need to do is create a blank slide. So we're going to go to Insert, New Slide. And you have a lot of options, but we're going to just choose a blank slide. So we'll insert that. I'm going to move the timeline down. Now let's look at our sample slide. And what do we have? We've got a character. We've got a background image, we've got a colored shape on top of the background, and we have our text box, and then we have our bullet points. So let's go ahead and build that out first, and then we'll do the synchronization. So we need to insert a background, so we're going to do something a little bit different here. Instead of inserting an image on the slide to be our background image, we're actually going to format that. So right-click, choose Format Background. And you'll notice I've got a few options, and one of those is picture or texture fill. So we're going to select that, and then I have to go find my file. So you should have a picture in your folder called Cityscape. Now one thing I'll point out about Cityscape is that it's a little wider than the slide, and you're going to see what happens when we insert that. So I'm going to select that, I'm going to put it in here, and you'll notice, we'll close that, and you'll notice that the background image here fits on the slide, but it's all scrunched up. And the reason is when the background image was inserted, it just forces that image to fill into the slide shape. And so it looks a little messed up. And for this demo, it probably looks okay, but we're going to fix that. So we're going to right click, choose Format Background, and you'll notice that you've got a few options down here. So one of the options is going to be Tile as Picture. So we're going to tile it, and what's going to happen is it's going to unscrunch it, but it's tiling the picture. Now the picture is a lot bigger than the slide, so we only get a part of it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to the alignment option, and I'm going to choose Center. And what it does is now you can see it centered the image. Now I don't want this cut off, so I'm actually going to lower this, and we can do that here. If you look, you've got the offset based on the x-axis or offset based on the y-axis. So the x-axis goes this way, the y-axis goes this way. So to offset this, we're going to do the y-axis. Now if you can't remember, just click. So if you click X, you'll see it shifts left and right. If you click Y, you can see it's going to shift up and down. So we're actually going to move this image down. You can hold the button down like I'm doing, or what you can do is you can type in a number. And this looks fine for me. If you want to, you can scale the image, and there's other things that you can do as well. So we're going to go ahead and keep this the way it is. We'll hit close. So now I've got my background image, but I can't really put anything on the background image because it's just a little busy. So this is where putting a semi-transparent shape over the image allows you to have the texture from that background image, make it visually interesting, but also have enough to separate it so you can add text and objects on the screen. So we're going to insert a shape. So go to Insert, Shape, and just draw the shape on the screen. We'll format it first, and then what we're going to do is set it in the right spot. So the first thing I want to do is get rid of the outline. So I'm going to double click on the shape. That opens the Format toolbar. So I'm going to go to Shape Outline and choose No Outline. And now I want to fill it with a color. So I'm going to go to Shape Fill. I'm just going to do a color pick. So we're going to use the eyedropper, and we'll just pick a color from this image here. This color here looks fine to me. a little darker. And now we need to make it transparent. So if you right click, choose Format Shape, you'll notice you have your transparency slider. So you can go ahead and slide it around, see what works. I'm going to type in 20% because that's about what I want. Hit close. And now I've got a darker background with some texture from the image, but it's not distracting. So I'm going to put this in place. And we are all set. So I've got my image here. And let's go ahead and add a character. So go to Insert, choose Character. We'll choose photographic characters. You can choose whatever character you want. I'm just going to choose this guy, Christian. I'm going to choose the torso shot. And then you can select a pose from here. This pose that actually loads up is fine for me. So we'll insert that. So now I've got them. It's a freeform environment, so I can move them and scale them and do whatever I want to. So I'll just put them here, maybe move them over a little. So this looks good. Now let's add a title box. So we'll go to Insert, Text Box. We'll insert some text. And it was Effective Managers is the text, right? So we're going to type that in. Now, of course, it doesn't look good because it's all black. So we're going to format that. So I come over to my rich text formatter and I'm going to add a color. Now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do a color pick and just pick a color from his tie. So I'm going to do more colors, choose this color picker. Oops, it's in the way here. Choose the color picker and I'll just choose a lighter color from his tie, hit OK. And so I've got that. Now we'll make this a little larger. I can bold it, change my font if I want to, and I'm going to move this over here, make it a little larger. All right. So this looks good for this. Now what we need to do is add our bullet point text. It's the same thing. We're just going to go to Insert, and we're going to insert a text box. Let's see what our text is. Delegate wisely, set clear goals, recognize achievements. So let's go ahead and insert a text box. Draw it on the screen. First one is delegate wisely. Set clear goals and recognize achievements. You'll notice that I spelled it wrong, so I see the red line. That's what works for us. Okay, so we've got my text in here. I'm going to select the text box. I want to format it. I can just choose the same color that I have here, so I'm just going to choose the color that's already there. And what I want to do is make it a little larger. Now we want to add some bullet points. So all I have to do is go up to the Format options and I select bullet points. And now I've got some nice bullet points. One other thing I can do is I can spread this apart a little bit. So if I go to this paragraph section, and then you have this little pull out. So I'm going to click on that. You can see I've got some options for the paragraphing. And one of them is the spacing. So I'm just going to choose 1.5 lines and hit OK. And now you can see it spaced it out. This actually looks fine for the demo today. Now let's go ahead and look at the timeline. So whenever you're adding content to Storyline, what you want to do is get in the habit of titling the objects on screen on your timeline. And the same thing later when you work with your layers, you'll want to do that as well. And this makes it a lot easier from a production perspective. So let's go ahead and title this. So this right here, this is our bullet point, right? This right here is our title. So we can title that. This is our manager. And all I'm doing is double clicking and titling. And then this is my background image, so I can say background transparency so I know what that is. Now those objects on the screen that I don't want to accidentally move, I can go ahead and lock those. So I'm going to lock the manager and I'm going to lock the background image, and then you'll notice, see, I can't accidentally select those and move them. So the only thing I can work on now are the text boxes. So we've got the timeline set up. Let's go ahead and look at how we do animations. Now, if we actually look at, let me move this timeline up. If we actually look at our bullet box here, you'll see right now it's just one single line. And what we want to do is we want to have the bullet points animate in. So let's go ahead and select our box. We're going to go to the Animations tab. and we're going to select an entrance animation. You'll notice you have entrance animations, exit animations, and motion paths. In this case, we just want an entrance animation, so that happens on the timeline. Whenever the object appears on the timeline, that'll be the entrance animation. And when it disappears from the timeline, that would be your exit animation. We're going to choose entrance animation, so we're just going to select one. We'll choose fade. Now you notice I've got a little icon here that lets me know there's an animation on here. You still see it's just a single line, and let's preview this and see what happens. So what should happen is this should just animate in, but you notice they all animated in together, and we want them to animate in separately. So let's close the preview. We're going to come over here and select our box, and what we want to do is, if you look over on your entrance animation, you have some effect options. Select that. One is, you can see you have some directions, but the other is I can either animate them in as one object, which it does by default, or I can animate them in by paragraph or by bullet point. So we're going to select that. Now let's preview this. And you can see that they come in one at a time. The other thing you'll notice, if we look down here on the timeline, is right next to that line I have this little expand or collapse arrow. So when I click on that, it expands the bullet point, and now I can see each bullet point is its own object on the timeline, which I can then control. So now I can move those things around and synchronize them to the timeline. Now what we want to do is add some audio. Go to Insert. If you already have audio, which we do for this demo, we're going to insert audio from File. But you could record the audio, and then what would happen is the audio track would show up on your timeline. We're going to go ahead and insert the audio from File. And you should have an audio in your Assets folder called Effective Managers, so go ahead and select that. And now you can see I've got my audio track on my slide. You'll also notice a little icon appeared here on the slide. You can see, just looking at the audio track, you can kind of see where there's some silence. And so this is our opening. It's going to say, Effective Managers, and this will be Delegate Wisely, Set Clear Goals, and Recognize Achievements. If you want to, you can hit the play button here. It'll play the slide. Your playhead will move across, and then if you want a cue point, just hit the C button. So let's say the playhead was here. If I hit the C button, you can see it put a little cue point there. So in this case, I don't really need to do that because I can see that it's very clear. So I'm just going to put a cue point here. So I'm going to move the playhead over here. I'm going to right click, create cue point at playhead, and create cue point at playhead. So now I have 3 cue points. I'm just going to nudge those into place. All of that works fine for me. You can see I can move them around and can fine tune if you want to. So now what I want to do is I want this audio to play, and I want these bullet points to come in at certain points. So we want Delegate Wisely, which is the first one, to come in at cue point 1. So I can take this and drag it, and it'll snap into place. Or I can just right click, and I can say Align to Playhead or Align to Cue Point. So we're going to align this to cue point 1. And then we'll do the same thing here, align to cue point 2. And this one here will align to cue point 3. And so now you can see I've got these all synchronized. Let's go ahead and preview this.
Effective managers delegate wisely, they set clear goals, and they recognize achievements.
And that's it. So you can see it worked perfectly. Now, one other thing about the timeline is you'll notice I've got these little arrow markers at the end. That lets me know that this shape, or whatever the object is on the slide, is connected all the way to the end of the timeline. If I want to pull it off, I can just select it, and I can get the double arrows and I can just pull it off. Now at this point, if I move my end slide, you can see that it doesn't stay connected. If I want to get it reconnected, I can just select this, right click, and I can put Show Always, and then you can see it's now reconnected to the end line. So what we learned in this tutorial was how to synchronize audio with your timeline and animations on the timeline. Now in this case we just use bullet points and a simple audio track, but it can be any type of audio and any type of object that you want to synchronize. So go ahead and practice doing that, and then in the next tutorial we're going to learn how to import PowerPoint slides.